everyone, welcome back to Skill Learn. In our today's video, we are going to start our formula topic. Okay, so basically we are going to talk about and understand about the Excel formulas. Okay, so what are the different types of formulas in Excel, how these formulas are generally used, and along with that we are also going to understand that in what particular condition what kind of formula needs to be used. Okay, and in our today's video, the prime focus is going to be on logical formulas. Okay, so we are going to understand about logical formulas. But before we proceed ahead, right, before we actually start talking about the logical formulas like and, or, not, true, false, and all, we need to understand that what do you mean by logical formulas? What do you mean by logical formulas? So in the last video, I think not in the last video, like a couple of videos back, we talked about logical operators, if you remember. So we talked about logical operators. Now, what does this logical operator generally do is that if a condition, and the condition could be anything, right? Let's say 2 is greater than 1. So this is one of the argument or condition that we are providing. And is it true or is it false? So it is true, right? But if I say that 10 is less than 9, right? Is this condition true? No, right? This condition is false. So when we talk about logical formulas, we always talk about arguments, okay? Arguments and logics that will be added up in the logical formulas like under and, or, not. So we are going to pass certain arguments within it, okay? And after certain arguments are passed, the formula is going to check that whether that passed argument is logically correct or not, okay? And when I say logically correct, whatever condition you have provided or whatever argument you have provided, whether it is correct or not. And based upon that, the formula is going to return you true, false, right? So this is what the logical formula actually generally do. Now, you might ask me that, Rashid, how many logical formulas that we are going to talk about today? So there are in total 8 logical formulas that we are going to focus on today. So the first logical formula is going to be AND function. Then we are going to talk about OR, NOT, true, false, if error, and is. Okay, so this is going to be our area of focus today. So total 8 logical formulas are there in Excel and we are going to talk about it. Okay, now let me erase this and let's jump on to the AND logical formula. Okay, so the very first formula that we are going to talk about is AND. Okay, AND logical formula. Now, what do you mean by AND logical formula? What exactly AND represents? Okay, so AND represent, so let's say you are going to the market, okay, and you are buying the groceries as well. Okay, so let's say let's take an example of Ram. Okay, so Ram is going to the market and he is buying groceries, right? So what AND is signifying here is that both the condition needs to be true. Okay, so let's say if you are passing a logical argument in AND function, then let's say if you're passing, let's say 5 arguments, so 5 is greater than 1, then 6 is greater than 3, then 3 is equals to 3, then 5 is equals to 5. So let's say if you're passing multiple arguments in an AND function, then if all the arguments are correct or true, then it is going to return true, okay, or else it is going to return false. So if any one of the condition is false, then AND function is going to return false. Okay, so let's try to understand and practice it from here. Let's try to see that whether it is making sense or not. Okay, so let me erase everything. Now here if you'll see, we have the first thing. Okay, so what we have done is that we have added two things here in cell A2 and A3. One condition is true, another condition is false. Okay, so what AND is saying that if both the conditions, okay, if both the conditions are true, then it is going to return a true value. Okay, so if both the condition, both the logical arguments are true, then it is going to return a true. But if any one of the condition, one value is false, hence it returns false. Means like if you're passing, let's say, two argument and one argument is true and another argument is false, then in that particular case, it is going to return false to you. Okay, then the same thing here, we are doing it using the basically using the cell address. Let's try to do it together and in Excel only. So let's say now I have already taught you that whenever you want to use an Excel formula, you will always start it with equal to sign. Okay, then you will type A and D and hit tab. The moment you hit tab, it auto completes the formula, right? So we are going to provide the first argument here, which is true. Okay, so we provided a first argument and the second logical argument is also true. Now the moment I hit enter, you'll see that it returns me true. Okay, so if both the condition or both the arguments that you are passing into the AND formula, if it is true, okay, then it is going to return you true. But let's say if any of one condition, so let's say the first condition is true, another condition is false, then it is going to return false. So and as I said, that if all the logical arguments are correct, then only and is going to return true. Okay, so in this particular case, it returned false, right? It returned false. Now let's not only manually you can enter true false in and formula, you can use cell addresses as well. Okay, so let's say if I add and here, hit tab to auto complete the formula, then let me select this, okay, and select false. And the moment I hit enter, can you see it returned me false? But the moment I'll make this cell address as true, can you see now it is returning true? So that means that if any one of the condition is false, it is going to return false. But if both the conditions are true, so here what we did is that let's try to focus here. So in this particular case, what we did is that we manually entered true and false, right? We manually entered true and false in both the cases. Here we used cell address. We used cell address. And here in this particular thing, we are going to talk about, we are manually going to enter a condition that 3 is greater than 1 and 3 is equals to 3. And let's see that whether both these conditions is making sense or not to the AND formula. So equal to and tab, and we are going to enter that 3 is greater than 1 and 3 is equals to 3. Now you tell me, just pause the video and think that whether these two conditions that you have added, which is 3 is greater than 1, is it true? Yes, right. And 3 is equals to 3. Yes, it is true. So if both the conditions are true, then what AND is going to return? It is going to return true. Okay, as per the behavior of AND function, it is going to return true to us, right? So let's check whether it's returning true or not. Okay, now the moment you hit enter, can you see it returned true? Okay, same way if you are entering any information in double quotes. Okay, so basically if you'll just see here in this particular formula, in this particular case, what we are doing is that we are not, you might see that true is a text. Okay, true is a text, but it is not a text. Okay, it's an argument that that Excel is taking right now. But let's say if you are entering true as a text, so just a note for everyone that if you want to put anything in text format in Excel, then it should always be under double quotes. Okay, it should always be under double quotes. So let's say if you are entering true in Excel in text format. Okay, so let's say I added and then double quotes true. Okay, and then another, let's say double quotes false if I'm entering, and then I'm closing this parenthesis and hitting enter. So can you see it is returning me false? But the moment I make this as true, okay, then it is going to return me true because both the conditions are correct. Okay, so true in double quotes is considered as true by the AND function. Okay, now any positive number is also considered as true by an AND. Okay, so let's say here if I use AND, bracket open, 3, which is a positive number, 2, which is again a positive number. So both are positive numbers. So positive numbers are always considered as true by the AND function. Okay. And the moment I hit enter, it is going to return me true, right? But let's say the moment I make it a negative number, just one second, pause it. Negative number, I think Excel is not accepting this logical, except Excel does not accept negative numbers. Okay. So in like, just again, let me repeat, all any positive number is considered as true by AND function. Okay. And any number, okay, which is zero, okay, it is considered as false. Okay. Any number like which is not zero, okay, any number uh which is greater than zero or is a positive number is considered as true, but zero is considered as false by AND. Okay. So equal to, and now I'll open the bracket, 0 comma 2. Now the moment I hit enter, can you see it is returning false? But the moment I'll make it as 0.2, because it's greater than 0, right? So the moment I made it 0.2, it returned true, because the positive number greater than 0 is considered as true by the AND function. Okay. Even I believe even the negative numbers are also considered positive by the AND function. Okay. So let's Google about it. Okay, let's try to Google about it and see that whether, because not everything, as a teacher I also don't know everything, right? I also have my own limitations. So you need to be smart enough to use Excel. No, sorry, you should be smart enough to use Google, right? So is negative number considered as true in AND function? Let me erase this, whatever I've written on the screen, because you need to have a very clear picture, right? So let me erase everything. Right. So what is Google is saying? Yes, in most programming languages, sorry, and function in Excel, we need to specify Excel. Yes. So in Excel, any non-zero number, including negative number, is considered true within logical functions like and, or, and if. Okay. So if you are using any formula, okay, if you are using any formula in Excel, um, so let's say you are using or formula, you are using and formula, you are using if formula. So if your condition is zero, okay, then it will be considered as false. Okay. But if it is positive number greater than zero or negative number less than zero, it is going to be considered as a true value. Okay. So this you need to keep in your mind. All right. Great. So I hope you have understood the AND function. Now let's move on towards let's move towards the OR function. Okay, but before that, let me clear up the screen as well. All right. So let's jump on to the OR function. Now there is no major difference between the and the OR function. Like, of course, there is a difference. It OR function also takes arguments. Okay. But in and, the difference is that both the condition needs to be true. So both the conditions needs to be true in and function, to return true, right? But in or, if any one of the condition, okay, so let's say if you're passing more than one condition, so if any one condition is true, any one condition is true, then it will return true. Return true. Okay, so this is the difference between the or function and the and function. And now let's try to see it using the examples that we have added up on our sheet. So let me first erase everything. Okay, so in our first case, what we are doing is that equal to or tab to autocomplete the formula. Then we are going to enter true, which is the first logical condition, and the second is false. As I said earlier, that if any of the condition is true, it is going to return true. Now, can you see the moment I hit enter, it returns true. Then the second, let's say again, just one moment. Yeah, I think I have repeated the same thing here. So true, false. So just ignore this particular one. Okay, it's not required because it's just a repetition. Okay, just ignore this. Now, if both the condition is true, then what will happen? Sorry, if both the conditions are true, then it will going to return true. But what if both the conditions are false? Okay, so in that particular case, none of the value is true, right? So it is going to return false. So equal to or tab, then I'm going to enter false, and again another condition is false. Okay, first is false, second is also false. So if both the conditions are false, then in that particular case, it is going to return false. Okay, so or means that if you do this or that, right? So if any one of the condition is true, it is going to return true. Okay, so let's see for this particular formula. Let's say or tab to autocomplete. 3 is greater than 1, which is true, but 3 is less than 3, which is false. So as one of our argument is true, it is going to return true. Okay, same way, like if you enter if you are using, let's say, text, and text is also like, let's say if you are adding true in double quotes, so it is considered as true. And if you are let's say adding false, right, in double quotes, then it is going to be false, right? And as one of the condition is true, it is going to return true. Okay, same thing with the numbers as well. So any positive number greater than 0 or less than 0 is considered as true in OR function. Okay, so we have checked that on Google as well. So equal to or 3 comma 2, so both the conditions are true, so it is going to return true. But if it is 0, okay, so equal to or and 0 comma 0, then it will return false. Why? Because 0 is considered as false by or and function. Okay, so that's how you are going to use the or function as well. But let's say if we make any of the number greater than 0, so let's say 0.2, so one condition is becoming true, so it should return true to us. Okay, so this is how you use the and function and the or function. Now let's jump on to the next function, which is not. Okay, now what is not? Okay, what do you understand by not function? Not function, what do you understand by it? Right, so not means like which is not true. Okay, or basically in Excel, if you'll see, so not means like whatever answer you are getting, it is going to reverse that. Okay, so it is going to reverse that. So let's say if you are getting true, okay, if your value if your logical arguments are true, then it is going to return false. And if your logical argument is false, then it is going to return true. So this is the behavior of the not function in Excel, that whatever answer you get, whatever your answer your logical argument is returning, it is going to give you exact opposite of it. Okay, so let's try to understand that how the not function behaves in Excel. Okay, so here if you'll see, as I said, if your argument, okay, if your argument is true, then it is going to return false. Okay, so can you see it returned false? And if your argument is, let's say, true, again it is going to return false. So in this particular case, we are going to use not. And then if you'll see, this is our cell A2 and it is greater than 10, right? Of course it is greater than 10. Then ideally my condition is true here, but not function reverses that. Okay, so it will give me false. But let's say if I make it 8, right, so now it will give me true. Okay, if my condition is false, it is going to give me true. But if my condition is true, it is going to give me false. Okay, so this is how not function works in Excel, that it reverses everything. Okay, now, as I said, any positive integer or any number greater than 0 or less than 0 is considered true in the logical formulas, but in case of not, it is going to return you false. Okay, so let's say if I add not here and 1, which is a positive integer, and it is considered true in that particular formula, but not will is going to reverse that, so it is going to return us false. Same way, 0 is considered as false, right? So 0 is considered as false, but as it is a not function, so it is going to reverse it, so it is going to give you true as the result. Okay, so I hope you have understood the not function as well. Now let's talk about true. Okay, so true function in Excel, it does not take any argument. Okay, so true function in Excel does not take any argument. I have written here as well that true function in Excel does not take any argument. So the moment you write true, so true function always returns the true value. Okay, so basically here if you'll see, so if we write here equal to true and just add the parenthesis and hit enter, so it is going to return true. And it even sometimes does not need the parenthesis. Okay, so the moment you do true, it is going to return true. Same way with false as well, it does not take any argument, it is going to it is going to return false. Okay, and without the parenthesis as well, it is going to return you false. Okay, so this is the true and false functions in Excel, logical functions in Excel. Okay, I hope you have understood it. Now let's understand one of the major formula that you are going to use in your career is if condition. Okay, if condition. Now, what is this if condition, or how do you use the if condition in Excel, or if a function in Excel? So tell me one thing. If you were not doing this course, then what you were doing? What would have been? What would you have been doing? Right? Then what would you have been doing? Right? So if means that, let's say there is a point A, okay, and there is a point B. Now I want to reach from point A to B. So if you would not have been taken this straight path, you could have taken this path, right? The curvature path, or this path, right? So if condition means that if you don't take one direction, you take other direction, right? So if condition basically signifies that if you don't do this, you are going to do that, right? So this is what the if condition generally does. Now let's try to understand using if condition with some examples. Okay, so equal to if, bracket open, then cell A2 is greater than 10, right? So if we'll talk about the if formula, so first what it does is that it takes one single argument. Okay, so if formula takes one single argument or one logical condition. Okay, one logical condition, and if the logical condition is true, then you return this particular value, and if it is false, then you return this particular value. So how the if function actually works is that it takes logical condition, and if your value is true, then you can just put anything here, true or trues or anything, and here you can just, if your value is false, then you can put, let's say, false or falses or falsesses, anything you can put. Okay, so if condition is generally used that if your logical argument is correct, then it returns you the true value, and if it is not correct, then it is going to return let's say false value. So I'm going to make you understand. Okay, don't worry about that. So let's say here in this particular case, if you'll see A2, which is this particular cell A2, which is 20, is greater than 10, right? So it is a correct argument. So if it is correct, then I'm going to return right. Okay, but in case if it was wrong, then I want this to return wrong. Okay, So now I'll close this parenthesis and hit enter. So can you see it returned right, which means that my logical argument is correct. But let's say if I enter 5 here and hit enter, so can you see now it is returning 5, which means my logical condition was incorrect. Okay. So you can customize the logical condition as well. So let's say if the condition is right, so I want to say you are right here. Okay. And if the condition is false, then in that particular case, I want to say you are wrong here, right? Now, can you see the moment I hit enter, my condition was correct because 20 is greater than 10, right? So it returned me, you are right. But the moment I add 5 here, so it says you are wrong. So this is how you use the if condition. Okay. Now let's say in the second case, if you'll just see that you define the logical argument, which is a2 greater than 10, but you did not provide that if the condition is true, what exactly do you need to return? Okay. So if you don't specify the true value, okay, or if you don't specify that what logical like if the logical argument is correct, then what information should be passed or returned back by the formula. If you don't define that, then it is going to return 0. Okay, so I can show you equal to if bracket open and a2 is greater than 10, and I don't define what if the value is true, so I'm not going to define that. And then for the false, I'm going to define wrong. Okay, for the false, I'm going to define wrong and close this bracket and hit enter. So can you see, as I have not provided any argument in the true condition, in that particular case, it returns 0. Okay, but let's say in case if I don't provide any condition in the wrong, okay, so if the logical argument is wrong, in that particular case, if I don't provide any return value, then what will happen? Just see. Okay, equal to if logical test is a2 greater than 10, right? I provided that if the condition is true, it should return true. But in case of false, I did not do anything, right? So it is going to return. Okay, sorry. So first of all, I need to make this false now. So I'll add 5 here. Now, can you see it provides false? Okay, so if you're not providing the condition, if you're not providing the condition for the true argument, sorry, if you're not providing the condition for like the return value for the true logic, then in that particular case, it returns 0. And if you don't provide the logical value for the false condition, right, so it returns false. Okay, but if the value of false is omitted but the comma is still there, then it returns 0. Okay, so in this particular case, I did not provide, like I in purposefully I did not provide this value if false. Okay, so I did not provide this value. But in case, let's say I added the comma but I did not provide the value, then what will happen? You see, if a2 is greater than 10, then return right. Okay, and I provided a comma and then closed it and hit enter. Sorry, I did not put equal to sign. Okay, now hit enter. So can you see now it returns 0? Because when you don't actually define the field itself, then it returns false. But if you define the field but you don't add any information, then it returns 0 for the false condition. Okay, so this is how you are going to use the if condition. Okay, I hope you have understood it. If you haven't, I would recommend and request you to book a one-to-one session with me and I'll be able to help you with all your doubts. Okay, now let's jump on to the if error section. Okay, so what if there is an error in a particular in a particular cell? So let's say I create an error intentionally. So it says 20 divided by 0. So can you see an error got created here? Let me highlight it as well. So an error got created here, and this green line indicates, okay, this green line indicates that there is an error in your formula. But I don't want it to return a division error or write something like this, div and then 0 and then like this. I don't want. I want to return that there is an error. There is an error. If I want this to return whenever there is an error in the formula, so in that particular case you are going to use the if error function. Okay, so here if you'll see, now I'll use the if error function equal to if error. Okay, and the value is a2 a2 divide by a3. Okay, and comma 0. What if there is an error? Then it should return error, right? But in our case currently, a2, which is 100 divided by 10, it's not an error, right? It does not give you an error, it will give you a true value. So in that particular case, it is going to return the correct answer. But in case if we actually create an error intentionally, then in that particular case what will happen is that, let's say, a3 divided by a2. So what I'm doing is that we are creating the error intentionally, right? So a3, sorry, a3, not a3, a3 divided by a4 it should be. Okay, so we are creating an error intentionally. Now it will return error. It will not show you the green mark, it will show you and return that there is an error. Okay, so can you see? Now I don't want to return say error, I want to say there is an error in this cell. Okay, and hit enter. Now can you see it returns this? There is an error in this cell. But what if you don't define that what should exactly be the error, right? Like if there is an error, what should be the return value? Okay, if you don't define that, in that particular case, if error, and let's say I say a3 divided by a4, and I did not define that what is going to be the error value, or the value that you get to see after there is an error. So in that particular case, if error, okay, I think in the older version of the Excel, it used to take that, it used to return certain values. Okay, but it used to return 0. Okay, when I actually started learning Excel, at that point of time it was returning 0. But now in the newer version of Excel, I think it has stopped providing any like it has stopped taking that. It has stopped actually using the formula. If you don't define the value if error, then it is going to not like it is not going to execute the formula. Okay, so okay, this is something smart that Excel has done, and which is great. Okay, so this particular point does not hold true. Okay, so I'm marking it as red, and I'm going to delete it as well. Okay, so this particular entire thing, it cannot be done. Okay, all right. So yeah, this is how you use the if error formula. Okay. Now let's talk about the last formula set, which is family. Okay. Is family. Now there are multiple formulas under the is family. Okay, so how you're going to find out that what are the different formulas under the is family? So just equal to and type is. Okay, so you'll be able to find a lot of formulas like is error, is even, is formula, is logical, is na, is non-text. Okay, so there are a lot of different formulas under is family. Okay, I'm going to show you some important formula here which is generally useful when you are doing the when you are actually working with your Excel sheet. So in that particular case, these formulas are going to be really helpful for you. Okay, so is blank. Okay, so if the cell, any of the cell in your data is blank and you are using the is blank formula, so in that particular case, it is going to return you a blank cell. Okay, it is going to return you blank. Checks if the value is blank, and if it is blank, then it is going to return you true. Okay, then the same way, if there is an error, okay, so you are going to use is error formula equal to is error, and let's say a3. This is the division error that I've created intentionally, and the moment I hit enter, so it gives you true. Okay, so it is going to return you multiple it is going to return you certain values, and sorry, it is going to return you true if they found that there is an error in any of the cell. Okay, so that's how you are going to use the is error formula. Okay, now how you are going to use is na. So if there is any na that you get to see, okay, in the data, then in that particular case it is going to return you true, right? If there is a number, okay, so if you want to check that whether there is a number or not, so in that particular case, if there is an is number, sorry, is number, then let's say I'm going to select this and hit enter, so it is going to give you true. So if you want to check that if there is an anything as odd in your data, so is odd you can use as a function, and then you can just simply hit enter and it is going to return you true. Even you can check for even, you can check that if there is any text. Okay, so equal to is text. Okay, and I'm going to check this particular cell and hit enter, so it is returning me false. Why? Because there is no text, but the moment I return right here text, so it is going to return me true. Okay, or let's say if I delete it, and then it returns me false, but if I type my name as Rashid, then it returns me true. Okay, so these all are the certain is formulas that you can use. Generally not very useful. Sometimes it would be useful for you, but the main thing that you need to focus on in this entire logical formula series is and function, or function, and if function. Okay, so these three are the major formulas that you need to focus on. Okay, so with this we have completed our logical formulas, logical formula module, or you can say the video lecture. Okay, in the next video we are going to talk about mathematical formulas. Okay, so I hope to see you in the next video, and till the time, keep learning, keep hustling, and if you have any doubt, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for watching the video.